Yep.
Good evening and welcome to the Look Finance SEQFC Preview Show with thanks to Vilic Law. Tonight we've got Darren and Tony joining us as usual. Evening, gents. And we're lucky enough to have TD from Redlands, Graham Harvey, jumping on. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, guys. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. We might jump straight into it. I know last week we had Cormac and we spent a bit of time in the BPL, so we might spend a bit more time in the MPL and FQPL this week. Let's start off. I think the big game, we spoke beforehand, obviously a bit of a derby is the first game of the weekend, 5 o'clock Saturday. Your club plays away to Capalaba. Interesting game, quite close at the mid to bottom end of the table. How do you think this is going to go for you, boys?
It's going to be a tough game. Obviously, earlier in the year, before lockdown, Capalaba came to the Compass Grounds and got the 3 points. So certainly going to be tough going back over there. Obviously, both sides are probably a little bit inconsistent at the moment, hence why they are where they are in the league. So, yeah, don't ask me for a prediction, but I think it's going to be tough.
How big are you going to ramp up the derby aspect of the game, Graham? I see you're organising buses to the fixture.
Yeah, I believe that's what the committee behind the scenes have been busy working on, making sure there's some people in red going over there. So yeah, that'll be nice. But look, it's a big game for the club, for the people of the region as well. So we have to make sure that we do our best to represent them. But obviously, with the league situation that we're in, it's obviously a very important 3 points that we're chasing as well for the MPL status.
6 points between the bottom six sides. I mean, it's tough being at the bottom, but there's a opportunity. I mean, if you get 3 points on the weekend, you could finish up as high as 8th.
Yeah, it certainly is tight. Like, even when you look at the league table, there's some big sides down there with City and Strikers. They're less than a win or 3 points away from being on the bottom spot. So, yeah, I think at this stage of the season, with only sort of 10, 11 games to go, it's very important that 3 points is the focus.
And I interviewed Jordan Manning when he took over the job. How's the lad going?
Yeah, he's doing really well. Look, like I said to you sort of in the preview, the job I offered him when the club came to me halfway through COVID and said, look, there's no finances there for coach or for first team players, and Rossi needed to move on for that reason. It was obviously a slightly different job to what it is now in terms of how MPL Victoria seems to have just shut down and every Queenslander's returned home. And then with the influx of some A-League players coming in, with our financial constraints at the club, it certainly made it a very hard job. But I think Jordan's doing a very good job within the, like I said, within the constraints that he's got. It's tough. Obviously, not being able to bring in injury replacements like some sides are able to do. These magical injuries that seem to heal pretty quick when a player moves clubs. We're not in that position. So, look, he's got the squad that he's got and he's doing a good job.
I saw that Jordan brought in a few ex-Pride players or got some of those guys over. Did you have an influence in that?
No. Jordan's in total control of all of that. Just like I took the same approach with him as I did with Rossi. If the head coach needs my help, then I'm happy to help. If they want to crack on and do it themselves, I think it's important that they have that freedom and flexibility to operate their environment. So, no, look, Jordan's been in control of all of those signings. I've had nothing to do with it.
And last question from me, how are you coping with the TD role? I remember watching Rossi during games when he was technical director at Lions, and it just absolutely frustrated him that he didn't have control of the team. How are you coping?
Well, I'm okay, to be honest. Like, my personal situation is that I've got my little boy at home, so I'm quite happy being home some evenings with him and making sure I'm dad to him, which is what I missed when I was away in China and Hong Kong. So, look, I cope all right with it when I'm down at games. Jordan's asked me just to sort of stand at the back and observe, and then come in and give him some advice where needed. So that's probably been one big change from when Rossi was there. So look, yeah, it's obviously hard as a coach. It's just like as a player as well. Like, if you're watching your teammates play, that's quite hard. But yeah, look, like I've said, I've got full faith in Jordan and what he's doing. And yeah, if he needs help, all he has to do is sing out.
looking in from there on Saturday night as well, there's another game. So Brisbane City Strikers. Do you think the club will be keeping an eye on that? Though obviously City and Strikers, we just mentioned before, sit in 12th and 9th. Do you think you're hoping they may drop some points? And even if you don't get full value out of Saturday, you're looking to leapfrog them maybe just through coincidence?
Oh yeah, look, I think like obviously give you some cliches. When our game's on, we'll just be focusing on that, and then as soon as that finishes, we'll obviously be straight on to looking at the scores and what's going on, and then working out where we sit. But look, I think like you've only got to look at like the Strikers squad and even the City squad, particularly in the midfield and going forward for those guys. They've got an awful lot of quality, so they probably should be able to get themselves out of the position they're in. Obviously, stranger things have happened with good sides getting into trouble, but look, I think I'd certainly take a draw there, so that both sides drop points. But I think we might be looking at other teams around us more than those guys.
One of those, and they seem to be the spanner in the works for the league at the moment. They're pretty interesting to follow. The Sunshine Coast Wanderers. They take on Power. Obviously, Power still have a few games in hand. Do you think this could maybe open the title chase open and change the dynamic of the top four if Sunny Coast give them a bit of a run for their money?
Yeah, look, they've obviously recruited really well during the transfer window that seems to have gone on a little bit longer than it was meant to be. But look, bringing someone like Tyson in, Tyson still gives me nightmares from chasing him around in the QSL, so he's a class player. And then obviously bringing Mitchie Cooper in, and then some of the younger raw boys. Like when we went up there and played them before lockdown, we obviously got a good result, but you could see that they were just young boys just feeling their way through the league and just learning. So I'm sure Arnie's had a sort of six months to get more sort of experience into them. So now they're really starting to show. So yeah, look, they are, I guess, the form team. Probably last weekend against Moreton Bay was a result that maybe was a bit of a surprise in the end, because you're probably thinking they might pinch something there. So it'll certainly be a tough game for Power. Obviously, with their last game against City, probably didn't go as smoothly as they were hoping. So yeah, they're certainly going to have to be prepared for it.
Also looking on Sunday, we've got Olympic versus Gold Coast Knights, so grand final replay. Tony, obviously we heard a couple of buses going across to Capalaba from Redlands. Do you think there's going to be a couple more maybe travelling north to Goodwin Park on Sunday? How do you think that's going to go down, mate?
Well, they normally do travel, the Knights supporters, don't they?
Yeah, I think you mentioned on a previous show
would be very, very
the turnout for the grand final.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be a great atmosphere there. Nice food, a decent game of football, a few beers, good Sunday afternoon, isn't it?
It's going to be an exciting couple of weeks for the Gold Coast Knights supporters. Obviously, they had that fixture against Gold Coast United, the derby. That was a good turnout for the community out for the Gold Coast. So I think that's going to be another one of these games that'll possibly open the league open. Graham, do you think Olympic, obviously they've played full fixtures at the moment, do you think they can hold on to the lead at the top of the NPL?
Well, look, Benny's got a good squad down there. We've played them twice in the last couple of weeks, and he's brought players off the bench that would obviously get straight into our starting lineup. He's got a good squad. He's got good options to change a game off the bench. So I think they'll be right up there thereabouts. And obviously, Gold Coast Knights, obviously are in a position where they bring in a new player each week. So I'm sure they'll be able to change their squad as and when they need. So that'll be fine for them.
Yeah, I think Gold Coast Knights have just signed Sonny Bill Williams.
Isn't it Jared Hayne?
Yeah. He's got a dream. He's got a dream of playing for Gold Coast, yeah.
I thought so.
Other games in the NPL this weekend, boys. We got Lions versus Roar on Sunday at 4 p.m. We got Gold Coast United versus East at 4:30 on the Gold Coast, and then obviously Moreton Bay Jets with the bye. So plenty going on at the moment in the NPL. I think it's interesting as well. You look at players. We talk about individuals. The Golden Boot, Graham. We got Joey Duckworth on 14, and obviously Jason Akwase with Gold Coast Knights on 13. Joey worked with you, didn't he, when you were at Pride? Do you think he'll close it down and maybe pull ahead this weekend?
Oh, look, he's got every opportunity. Joe's a really good player. Like he's probably one of those players that you look at in the league that would really benefit from the national second division. Like A-League clubs probably aren't brave enough to take a chance on some of the NPL boys just because they're not in that full-time environment. So I think if there was that national second division, then Joe would be a player that would play in that. So, yeah, look, I mean, he's obviously got a right leg that's just for standing on, so he doesn't get many with that. So he could do with using that a bit more to get himself up there. But yeah, look, he's got every chance. The only thing I'd say for Joe is just I hope his finishing's not as bad as his golf, because his golf is terrible.
So we got the scoop here about Joey Duckworth, guys.
Yeah, he plays army golf.
That's a hot topic at the moment, the second league. It's kind of interesting because obviously for yourself, when you're at Pride, you had Wenzel Hall get recruited pretty quickly post-season by Brisbane Raw. Is that something that you see, or is it kind of just get a knock on the door one day saying that we'd like to have his services?
In terms of what happened with Dylan?
Yeah, getting picked up. Because I know he was trialling at Central Coast, wasn't he?
Yeah, all right, here we go. I'll give you a bit of controversy. So Dylan was meant to go to the Central Coast on trial, I think, on a Wednesday. We were due to play Brisbane City in the FFA Cup on the Tuesday night. And I got a phone call from Dill on the Tuesday about 3 o'clock when I was at school one day. I actually got a text message that said, "Can I talk to you?" which normally, as a coach, means a player's got a problem. So when I finished class at 3 o'clock, I rang him and he said, "Oh yeah, look, I've spoken to the Raw today and they want me to sign for them and I'm not allowed to play tonight." So that was the first I'd heard of it. I had no contact from the Brisbane Raw for the guys that were in charge at the time. It's obviously not the guys that are in charge here now, so no issues from me from that side of it. But yeah, that was the first I heard of Deal going, and then the arrangement that we had with Central Coast sort of had to be rearranged.
Well, it's I heard plenty of segments of that story, but thank you for sharing that. That's bit more light to what happened there. Obviously, Dylan's doing pretty well for himself, getting some first games towards the end of the Hal season.
Yep.
Yeah. Does that? I mean, for yourself, you're a pretty good coach in terms of development. Obviously, you're in a different role at the moment. Do you take a lot of pride out of that, seeing the players that you have come through and their success, even if they are sometimes playing against you?
Yeah, look, 100%. To be honest with you, like I prefer that than winning the trophies. Like that to me is like a bonus, really. I said that at the time with the Pride boys when we won the league there. Like it was that was nice, a nice little way to sort of cap off a good couple of years. But it's more like, you know, Dylan went on, Harry Sawyer went on and went into the Philippines, and then man marked me over in Hong Kong as well. And then boys like Alex Parsons has been down to Central Coast and come back up now at the Raw Youth. You got Dan Hall. So yeah, like just seeing those guys get that opportunity to go on and progress is it just gives you a lot of satisfaction, because really they're living 99% of the population's dream. So for you to be able to just play a small part and just maybe keeping them on the rails is really important and really enjoyable.
No, it's good. Obviously, on the segue from Pride, we might move on to the FQPL and get your thoughts on some of the games there. Pride, they actually take on Holland Park Hawks, so they're on a bit of a climb. I was hoping we'd have Liam, who's regularly on this show, part of the active support. Yeah. I don't think you've met him many times, but he's part of the pit. Yeah. Pride's doing pretty well at the moment, seem to be on the climb. I got to see them on the weekend, and they've got a really good young squad who are doing really good things. It's a bit of an interesting year. Do you think they'll go the distance over the next few years?
Oh, look, I think, Andrew's got a really good young squad down there. Like a lot of those boys have come through the system at Pride, which is great to see, and great to see that there's now a coach in place there that follows that. Whether they'll go all the way, look, I think there's some tough teams down in the QPL. There's some big hitters down there with Rochdale. Obviously, Toowoomba are doing really well, and then Logan are not far away. So, with only one side going up this year, it's going to be a real battle. But they've certainly, since lockdown, they've certainly started to find a little bit of form. They just probably need to be a little bit more consistent throughout the games. But look, nothing stopping them.
Wolves are surprising results the last few weeks, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the hot team of the comp at the moment.
Yep.
I was surprised they beat Mitchelton on the weekend. And did it easy too, not just beat them.
Well, Tony, on that Mitchelton, they kind of drop off a bit. They're a bit out of arm's reach now at the moment of the top two. Obviously, Thunder on 31, Logan on 30. Who's your pick now? I know. Obviously, you're calling out Mitchie, and a few weeks ago mentioning that they might be on the up and up, but they've had a bit of a stumble. Do you think they'll come back through, or are you backing another horse in the race now?
No, I'm not backing any horses. I only back one horse. If I lose it, I lose it. I jump from one to the other. You can't jump halfway through, mate.
These days, cash outs everywhere.
I don't cash out. I just blow my money quick.
Oh.
You will have seen on the show that we did last night with the Southwest Queensland Thunder. They're really confident and so pleased about how they're going at the moment. Of course, with their two Italian imports who've gelled with the side wonderfully and are looking at settling in the area now. So they're a really happy bunch there and up on the range and deservedly in top spot. Now the pressure's on Logan. Can they go with them and take it all the way to the final weeks?
Logan to find a way to drop off again. Yeah, he's the controversy.
You do this to at least one club a week.
No, I said that last week about Logan. They won't go up. They're jinxed.
I worry you might be fueling a fire there, Tony.
I don't go to Logan anyway to watch any games. I'm safe.
Oh, after saying things like that, I don't think you would be safe, mate. Obviously, Saturday's the majority of the fixtures. So Mitchie will play Rochdale Rovers in a top 4 clash. So that's 3v4. SEQFC, you think they'd have a pretty straightforward game against Souths? That's first 10th. That's at 6 o'clock at Souths. Prior to taking on Holland Park, as we mentioned, so 5v9. Logan take on Southside Eagles. So this week may not create a gap quite as big as we were thinking or even change any ground. Obviously, the top 2 taking on some of the lower-ranked teams. And then Ippy Knights wrap it up on Sunday. They play up against Sunny Coast. Play at home Sunny Coast.
There's no standout games in that weekend, is there?
No, only Rochdale.
And Rochdale is probably the pick of the bunch.
Yeah.
It's rough. We are the 2 FQPL boys aren't even here, and they're probably the teams we want to talk about most. The Rochdale Rovers media man and the top supporter for Pride.
He's only the media man. He can change clubs next week.
He was doing pretty good. He was doing some pretty good match day stuff on the weekend, Tony.
I haven't been out there. I don't cross the store. I don't go over the gateway, mate.
Well, after you offer earlier in the day for a beer, I think he might come out your way.
He's coming on Friday night to Pine Hills.
That's a good segue once again. What we might do, we'll jump into Brisbane. Obviously, BPL, that's kind of one at the moment. Graham, off the call, we spoke about St. George. They're still top of the table, 5 points clear. You mentioned, obviously, the club situation. Do you look into clubs like these to offer opportunities onto a higher level or, when it comes into new seasons, into transfer windows?
Oh, look, I think if you were in a position where, as a club, you had a little bit of money to offer some of those players, then that attraction of playing at a high level might tempt people. But look, for Redlands and the situation we're in at the minute, unless someone wants to come and play for a packet of crisps and a can of Coke, then we're probably not in a position to really go and attract some of those players because they're obviously picking up all right coin doing what they're doing down there. And a lot of the boys that play at that level just want to play with their mates and maybe not have as much commitment as the NPL demands. So, yeah, look, I don't think that's a realistic option for us at the moment.
Oh, fair. Cool.
And playing with the mates is one of the things that Centenary Stormers has got this season. The players there are top-class players, but the only reason that they're at Centenary Stormers is because they can all play together. I saw they had a big 6-3 win over Brisbane Knights on the weekend. So they've been so hot and cold, and obviously they had a hot weekend.
Yeah, I've seen that. Like, obviously there's a few boys that are linked with Western Pride floating around down there, and Benny Schofield's down there doing things as well. So yeah, look, they've certainly got a talented squad. I guess on a Friday night, it just depends who's really focused on the football or maybe what's happening after.
It's probably they play on a Friday night because it doesn't give them a chance to get all the juice. And then they can get all the juice for the rest of the weekend.
Correct. That was why every time I was at Western Pride, we would always train on a Friday night. So at least I knew where the 18-year-old boys were until 9 o'clock.
Of course, with Cormac on the show last week, they followed through Albany Creek with a big 4-0 win over Grange Thistle on the weekend. So Albany Creek have really come good now. And they're in third on the ladder.
Yeah, creeping up behind Grange. So some other teams closing some ground on, hopefully St. George, to make it a bit more exciting come the back end. From there, obviously, not too much happening in that league as well, kind of like the FQPL, but I think it's the capital leagues this week that are really showing plenty more potential in games. Cap 1 actually got 3 out of the top 4 teams in pretty competitive games. So Saturday, I think one of your old friends, Terry Kirkham, Graham, he's down at Sanford. They're sitting top of the table. They take on UQFC. And then Virginia, they're third. They take on the Lakes. So it's pretty interesting at the moment because Brisbane Athletic sit equal on goal difference with Sanford at the top of Capital One. So from your experience, I think Terry came through Pride after yourself, Graham. Did you hear much about him, or do you think he'll have what it takes to obviously move Sanford up to the BPL?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like Terry's record in Brisbane football speaks for itself, doesn't it? So like he's had success at different clubs at different levels within Brisbane football circles. So yeah, look, I think with how he operates, he's a smart operator with attracting players to clubs. So I don't think he'll have a problem to do what he needs to do there at all. No.
I think that gives them obviously an opportunity. I think with Brisbane Athletic, they're playing AC Carina, so they're tied first, obviously only behind them on goal difference. I think it's a must-win for both of those clubs just to keep it competitive at the top of Capital One. A few other games. I think one that stands out is obviously relegation battle at the bottom. North Pine play New Farm, so that is at North Pine. I think that's going to be an interesting one coming up. Obviously, there's another Pine team doing quite well. Tony, do you know much about North Pine, or do you think they might be trading places with their neighbour?
I'm surprised they're that far down.
Yeah?
Wasn't that long ago they were in Premier League, was it?
I think they may have gone down over the last 2 years, I believe, from memory. So it's unfortunately a slippery slope for them at the moment.
They're just not a
team for North Pine. Oh, sorry, Tony. North Pine Club, so maybe I could speak to them. With Chris Carlton moving from Caboolture back to North Pine, massive injection of talent in their midfield, and we saw on the weekend with them getting over the Lakes, massive result for the team, and that might just get their engines going for this season, and they can move themselves back up the ladder. I'd expect them to get a home win over New Farm this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go down.
Keep them a bit safer. Any other games stand out, Darren or Tony, that you've seen for Cap 1 this weekend?
I think Brisbane Athletic against Carina may be a banana skin for Athletic. I just looking at the ladder before, seeing Carina where they are, for a team that just missed out on promotion last season, to find them mid-table it's a bit of a surprise. And I don't know. I get the feeling that if there's going to be an upset in the league, that's the game that I'd pick for there to be trouble.
I'd have to agree. I think anything involving Brisbane Athletic this season always seems quite interesting and intriguing. So that might be one to check out. Tony, onto your league, mate. Cap 2, Friday night. I hear where you're going to be. Pine Hills, 9 from 9. Pretty impressive still. How are you feeling about that? Pretty stoked? You're pretty confident against KPR Friday night?
I didn't go last week. It was at Newmarket. Spoke to Leo today. Spoke to Chinga today. They're fairly confident. So see what happens. Mate, we've said all along, it's theirs to lose.
Exactly.
They've got a team on paper that could win Capital One, I reckon.
And compete in the BPL.
That's right. So they really should walk it in, and they'll probably finish up walking it in.
Tony, between us and obviously everyone watching, will Leo stay around to lead him to the BPL, do you believe?
Yes. What are the rumours, Joey? You must have heard something.
Oh no, I know Leo is very good. I just don't know where his ambitions sit, and I kind of like Terry as well. They're both those coaches who have such great track records. There must be plenty of clubs knocking on their doors for their services. It's a good squad, and as you say, they could be competitive, if not win Cap 1. It'd be interesting to see them go the distance and then see what opportunities they may be able to build on.
I'm pretty sure he'll be there again next year. From there on in, anyway, contracts aren't worth anything anyway, so you never know.
Regardless of contract, it's a crazy enough world as it is. I'm just thankful that we've still got games going.
They're not worth anything. They're just a bit of paper that someone signs, and that's it. Off we go.
From obviously top of the table, Pine Hills. Below them actually sit the next game in the round is Westside versus Oxley, so 12v11. So it seems to be a bit of a cellar-dwellers clash at the moment through the capital leagues. I actually think this will be a good one to get out to. Westside, bit interesting at the moment. I think, they're trailing behind, but they're still in touching distance. Darren, do you have much insight on these teams, or have you heard much on what's the go about with them?
I do know that Westside parted with their coach 2 weeks ago, and they've got a new coach on board now. So hopefully they can build some momentum from that. Oxley, I don't have any knowledge. I'm sorry.
So do you think with the new coach, I don't know if you boys noticed the experience, but the players might be pretty impressed to try and stake their claim to a position for a fight back post back end of the season?
That's probably a good question for Graham, I'd think. Graham, have you ever taken over a team halfway through the season and experienced that bounce?
Yeah, look, when I first joined Pride, Dodsey had obviously moved over to the Raw, so I think there was 7 games left when I came in there. So we managed to win our first game, which was good. But after that, it tailed off for a little bit until the end of the season. Look, I have been at clubs where coaches have come in and out as a player, and I think it certainly revitalises those that maybe have been on the bench or sort of out of favour a little bit. It certainly does give you a little bit of a lift that there's a fresh set of eyes in there, particularly if the coaches come from outside of the club. Sometimes if the assistant coach goes up, there's those same opinions and same beliefs about you as a player because they're shared between the two, like the assistant and the head coach at the time. So if it's a new face in, then yeah, certainly it should give everybody a bit of a boost.
That may be just the opportunity or maybe the inspiration for the club to think about if they pick up any of this, Graham.
Yeah, maybe. You'd like to think if they've decided to part ways with the coach, then they've got Plan B organised.
From there, not too much stands out. I think the next one, Darren, you mentioned before the call, Cap 3 seems to be the league that we want to look at this weekend. What took your interest in this competition?
Yeah, again, it was on the weekend, and of course, Narangba, we think are going to absolutely streak this league. And on the weekend, they were 3-1 up against Willowburn with about 20 minutes to play, and Willowburn came back to nab a 3-3 draw, it's the first sign of weakness that we've actually seen from Narangba. So Willowburn, they probably needed to win that game if they were going to give the promotion spot a shake. But looking at this weekend's games, Willowburn are taking on Jimboomba. It's going to be a good game to watch. And then there's the top of the table clash, Narangba United against second place Springfield United. That should be huge.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a look at a bit of the stats for this, and it's interesting. 2 different squads, really, how they play. You have a look, Narangba already scored 50 goals, which is a huge haul. But Springfield, 21. But then again, you look at the back end, maybe it's the defence is such a strong aspect for them. Springfield only conceded 2 goals so far this year, whereas Narangba have leaked 15. So it's pretty interesting. Is it, Graham, from your opinion, how would you prefer to win? Do you try to obviously try and get a smart win and try and just not to concede and find what you can in attack, or do you just go hard?
Well, it sounds like you've just made that a 0-0. No, look, like for me, football's a game to enjoy and score goals, isn't it? So I'm all about Kevin Keegan. If it can be 4-3, then let's roll with that as far as I'm concerned.
Freefield have got Declan Murphy in goals, I believe. So there's a player that has gone to the club for project reasons rather than necessarily playing in a league of his ability.
Definitely, yeah. He's capable of playing higher for sure.
Definitely. Well, I think that was one of the big name signings that surprised a lot of the competitions because he was called through pre-season before COVID. And I know being in the area, I think that was a pretty good pickup for them, and maybe he can help build the squad around him as they start climbing the leagues.
Yeah, well, they've got as you know from the beer, Joey, it seemed to be making all the right moves so far.
As a young club, I think there's plenty of promising things, but then again, out west, and it seems to be out even further west towards Toowoomba, there's plenty of good things going on at the moment. Outside of that, Darren, anything else pick your fancy from that league? Because I know there was one other thing apart from the top four clashes between the top four clubs. There was something else that I noticed in it.
Oh, geez, you put me on the spot now.
Well, it's flip the top four, and the bottom four teams are actually playing against each other. So pretty interesting how the numbers turn out sometimes in the season.
Right, there you go. Thankfully, there's no relegation in this league for either of the teams. So, you're playing for pride.
Exactly. Playing for bragging rights, maybe a bit down the bottom there. So those games obviously both on Saturday. So Bethania play Brighton and Park Ridge play Tiviot. So I think maybe some of those teams can start a climb and maybe finish the year strong and have a couple of wins under their belts. Yeah, I think for myself, that's really it for the weekend, guys. Any other games or any games? Actually having a look while we went through, what stood out for you guys? What do you think the games will be? I think, Graham, we might have an idea where obviously you'll be for the weekend's fixtures, but is there any other ones that grabbed your attention that you think would be worth keeping an eye on?
Oh, look, obviously, like focusing up there in the NPL, Knights against Olympics probably the pick of the round there, isn't it, to see the two big hitters go at it. And then, yeah, if you're looking for a cheeky little relegation scrap, head on over to Capella.
So that's a plug. I think I was at Capella Bar last Sunday. I believe they played, and yeah, it was a good little turnout, good little community get out there. Actually, hot gossip. I actually heard Capella Bar trying to recruit a certain player, but he's too happy playing in the Capital One, the City One side, Matt McKay. So that was a good little thing. Everyone had a gander during the warm up. The City One team was playing, and they got up quite well. So that could be a rumor that might come about one day, but I don't think he's too keen on jumping up to the NPL side.
I would just recommend for Matty that if he is thinking about that, then he could learn a lesson from me about thinking to come back out of retirement and play. I would recommend that you don't do it.
Darren, I have a question. Do you think this National League second tier will ever get off the ground?
Good question. Look, I think first and foremost, FFA have got to get the A League right. Like you have to get the top of the pile right. Otherwise, I just don't see how financially you would get a second division right if you can't get the A League right. I think it's great. I think it's great that there's so many clubs that are interested in pushing the boundaries and trying to sort of change the status quo, because I do think the A League does need a bit of a change up. It is fairly sort of cyclical with players and coaches and, just doing the same thing. And clearly there's been a drop off there with sponsors and the TV revenue and even like people watching the game, going to games. So I think it's a great idea. I think someone's got to find some way of financing it, because as you see with the A League, like the travel and then the accommodation and then even the requirements that FFA put onto clubs to make it a professional league are so exhaustive. Sometimes you've got to have large pockets, deep pockets. So I think it's going to be a tough one to get off the ground. But, you know, look, if there's, I think, is it those 20 clubs or is it 30 clubs? 30 clubs, yeah. Look, if they've all stumped up the money to buy in straight away, then it's good that they're serious. But yeah, for me, I think that the A League and the W League need to be the focus, particularly the W League moving towards hosting the Women's World Cup. And you've seen there with all the Matildas or the young Matildas disappearing over to Europe. I would say that's quite a worrying trend for the brand of the W League. So I think FFA need to focus in there first.
I don't think there's too many clubs in Brisbane that can afford it, can they?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't know off the top of my head, you know, how they're going to structure it. So then that obviously impacts on, you know, do you do conference style, so it reduces some of the travel. If I'm being really honest with you, chaps, like everything I read about the second division, just in my mind, I'm still convinced that was what the NPL was formed for, and somewhere along the lines from FFA rolling out the NPL guidelines to the governing bodies, to Football Queensland and to Football Victoria, etc. It's got lost in translation. People put their own spin on it, their own slant on it. Then it's gone out to the clubs and they've had their say on it, and it's really derailed what I believe is what the FFA wanted, which is the second division to be the NPL. So I think we're almost we're making life harder for ourselves by trying to have a new second division, when really you could reform the NPLs and make that a second division, to be honest.
Definitely. We have a cup competition at the end of the season for all the NPL winners. Why don't they play a Champions League format or play round robin, play home and away? You win your league, you then go into the national competition. Yeah,
correct. And obviously, like with COVID and the restrictions there, how you would get teams to travel. You know, if you were asking teams to travel like they do in the A-League every week, I just don't think, I can't see 2021 being that flexible. I think we're going to be in and out of lockdown or in and out of sort of crazy periods. So, yeah, again, I think maybe just a conference style within your own state might be an easier way to go with it, and then look to expand. But like I said, like everything, all paths lead to the same for me, which is that's what the NPL was for. So I just think we're going around in circles, to be honest. I think it's people creating jobs for themselves. Just rebrand it. Just put a new name on it.
Graham, can I ask you one question before we leave? What are Redlands going to do? What is it about your squad? What is it about the team? What are Redlands going to do to stay up? How are they going to do it?
Oh, look, I think we've got a good young coach in there with some good ideas. He's got great buy-in from the group of players that he has there. They're all young lads, hungry to learn and hungry to improve, which in my experience around Brisbane isn't always the case. So to have that group really bought into what Jordan's trying to get across is really important. So I think sort of strength in numbers is going to be important for us. And look, we've got a fair few injuries at the moment, so if we can get some of those guys back on deck, no pressure, Benny, at All Sports, if you can work some magic, you can get some of those guys back once we get the next two fixtures out of the way. Then we've got like a run of fixtures there where we really also need to be targeting points. So yeah, look, I think strength in numbers, good young coach, willing to try new things. Yeah, we'll be in there or thereabouts.
Good insight.
They ask me in, what is it, 8 weeks, 10 weeks time?
I think that'll be the reflection, but especially in this season, you could be anywhere in 8 weeks' time.
Yeah, and look, for me, like as technical director of the club, obviously we want to avoid being relegated, but like I said to you at the start, the way that the league has changed, the way that the rules have changed consistently post COVID, it's made life very difficult. So like for Jordan as a young coach, there really is no pressure on him. It's just a case of going out there, getting some experience and learning about the game and learning about his own coaching style and what he can and can't do. So yeah, like the whole league, like if you look at what it was like at the start of the season compared to now, it's just completely different. So there's no pressure really, to be honest.
Post-COVID, do you have any ambitions to coach again at even at possibly a higher level? Obviously, you've pretty much done what you can do in the NPL level. Would you look to higher ambitions? Is that the goal?
Yeah, look, I certainly do. I obviously had the role in China, which is still sort of ongoing, but we're obviously pretty affected by COVID. So, yeah, I do still have ambitions. Like, as I said to you earlier, I've got my little boy here in Brizzy, so he's just about to turn 5. So I'm always drawn back to Brizzy, and I would really like to stay in Australia and coach at a higher level, but obviously opportunities are pretty hard. And to be honest with you, unless you've probably played for the Socceroos or you've played for your local club, it's pretty hard to get a gig, which is fine. That's that's the way coaching goes, with the player pool being where they recruit from. So I'm probably still looking overseas to go there, but just trying to obviously tie that in with my little boy as well, making sure I'm around for when he's at school, etc., which is probably a little bit more important to me at the moment, to be honest.
No, good call. On that, obviously, I know Moonie is in some capacity a former player for Raw, but he is someone who's cut his teeth on the NPL as a coach. Do you think his impact, and if he goes well, that'll be a good opportunity and good stake to the claim for others like yourself to have the opportunity to step up to be an A-League coach?
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously just before Moonie, with Mark Rudin going in over at Phoenix initially, like, he'd cut his teeth in the NPL and obviously has that playing background, but then gets an opportunity. So yeah, I think it's the same for Moonie. Moonie's sort of done the hard yards in Brisbane, through the clubs he's been at with Power and Lions. I think even over at Easts before that. So yeah, he's certainly earned his opportunity there, and the way he engages the local community and tries to keep everybody happy, which is not an easy task sometimes. I think there's a lot of goodwill towards him to go and be successful, because I think, for us young coaches, looking up to that, looking at those opportunities, we want him to succeed, so that then maybe more owners, more CEOs, etc., start to look down and go, oh, the NPL's not a bad breeding ground for coaches as well as players.
I've got to agree with you there, because it's definitely, I know you're not in a coaching capacity at the moment, but yourself, obviously Moonie's moved on now, Benny at Olympic, Gray's obviously not in his position anymore, but there's quite a good calibre of coaches in Queensland. I think that may be a talent pool that might be something in the future. We produce pretty good players, but I think we're coming into it, and I kind of look at it for this season for myself. I look at it, and some of the best football minds are out there coaching at the moment. They may not have the resume as a player, but it's a good thing to see in a community aspect.
Yeah, 100%. Look, like Gray's obviously been round the traps a long time as well, and been very successful where he's been. So yeah, and Benny's obviously over at Olympic and put them consistently in the top 4 all the time. So look, I think there's a good sort of young, if you say under 40, there's a good young talent pool there. For me, I think that's where FFA and even Football Queensland probably need to do a little bit more to maybe have a bit more of a pathway, an opportunity for those young coaches maybe to go in and even do sort of part-time, even sort of voluntary roles within the national setup, whether you get in and get an opportunity to do a bit of scouting work for them, just so that you're on the radar of those national teams, so that they're constantly involving. I think that whole, if you want to be an expert, hire experts and make sure that you keep challenging yourself as a coach to have the best people around you rather than just a set of mates, I think is really important. So I think there could be more done higher up the chain, just to recognise the work of some within the NPL. But look, that's probably above my pay grade, to be honest. But I think that's something that we as a nation should be really targeting. Like, if you think about players, the FFA would have a database of all the potentially talented players for under 23s and below. Then why would they not have the same for coaches? So that maybe we move from that cyclical process of the same faces being given sort of 4 or 5 chances. I think it's fine to be given 2 or 3 chances in the A-League, but once you've sort of been 2 or 3, like what are you going to do that's different? So yeah, I think that's certainly an opportunity for us as a nation to push the coaching side of it forward through the FFA.
Yeah, I think that's really good points, Graham. And I agree with yourself through most of them. Like, it's just, I think that pathway is something, for myself, I'm involved with, but I think it's very, very important in terms of the progression of the game. And, you mentioned a few times throughout, obviously, financial constraints. But I think the value that a good coach can offer to a club, a squad, a team it's huge. And, maybe that's something that might be a hot topic over the next few years is the utilisation of the quality coaches, especially those ones developing and wanting to learn.
Yeah, look, I think as well, like Queensland's a difficult one, isn't it? Because there's only one A-League side. So there's only one, Moonie's in there at the moment. There's only one coach across the whole of Queensland that gets the opportunity to work in the A-League. So, again, you've got to be prepared to move. So that rules some coaches out straight away. But when you actually dig down and start to look overseas at how many Aussie coaches have started to move and go overseas and get better experience, well, not necessarily better experience, but different experiences that you can then come back and maybe add value to an A-League organisation would be, there's a fair few floating around. Like I know you've had Dodsey on previously, like David Bella's obviously gone over to Malaysia. There's a few boys in Malaysia with Brad Malone doing a bit. Mehmet Jurakovic is over there. Then you go up into Japan with some of the guys, with Ange, Pete Klamoski over there. So when you actually start to dig down and float around Asia, you're going, actually, there's 20, 30 coaches over here that are getting far different experiences than what the A-League gives you. So would you add value to that? Obviously, I include myself in that, being over in China and Hong Kong as well. So, yeah, look, I think as we grow as a football nation, that's certainly something that we need to look at, about how we identify talented coaches and then keep them for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from there, I know we can all talk football all night, but I might cut us short. But we've been very thankful for you and your insight, Graham. It's always valuable to have someone like yourself jump on and give you insight into the leagues and your opinion in football in Queensland and Australia. So I'd like to thank you for your time, Graham.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks,
Graham.
Thanks for going. Good luck.
Thanks. Cheers.
Once again, I'd like to thank the Look Finance for supporting the SEQFC Preview Show, and with thanks to Vilic Law. Darren, Tony, thank you again for this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey.
We'll see you again next time, guys. Thank you for joining us.
No worries.